Hello APCS kiddos! So today we're going to talk about memory references and copies of everything, and so I like to call it copies everywhere. This goes with notes that are online for you, so you should go download those from Canvas right now. Hit the pause button. Did you do it? Hit the pause button. Okay. So we've got a main method and we have another method. And here we're going to see if we pass in an integer array in method 1, what happens? So I want to be drawing the pictures like we did in class last time. So when we very first start, we would start with an array A that's holding the values 1, 2, and 3. Alright, no big deal. Then method 1 calls A, and it takes that A and it throws in right there into R. So now there's an array named R. Now here's the thing. Whenever we pass something from here to here, like 5 and there's an integer that catches 5, or a string and it catches the word banana, or whatever it is, right? It's sort of like saying R equals A. That means that anything that is stored in A gets stored in R, no big deal. But what is really being stored in A is not an array. What's really being stored in A is the memory address of the very first element in array A. Okay? So this is the memory address of this very first element. It's pretty easy to get to the next one. You just add 1 to it, right? So if you know where the first one is, you can find the rest of them. But this stores the memory address for it. So when you do this, what's stored in R becomes the memory address, so that these are both pointed in the same place. Then, you move down into method 1 and you change something, all right? So I'm going to change A at 0, so we've got our positions 0, 1, 2, and change that to be 100. Okay, so I changed, ooh, I'm sorry, this does not say A on yours. This says R on yours. R. Okay, so I go from R, which is right here, and follow it up and change R at 0. But when I do that, it does what I accidentally did before. It changes this R's value, but A is also pointed at the same place. So it changes A at the same time. That's great. When you get to the end of method 1, the local variable R vanishes. We're done with this whole method. Goodbye to R. It gets erased. So afterward, what we have just looks like A, here's A, pointing at, this is afterward, A points at the array 1, 2, 3, except that instead of 1, 2, 3, it's been changed to 100, 2, 3. All right. So if you're drawing the pictures into your notes, those are the pictures that go there. And I'm going to have a fast shot in just a second of what gets put in the fill in the blanks next to it, okay? All right, we're going to skip all the way down to page 5. So go to the very last page. If I were doing this in class and we would have done an entire lecture, I might have gone to page 2 next, but we're going to go to page 5, so the last page. So on page 5, you see a method called changeMe, and the question on this page is looking to find out if you pass a whole bunch of different things into a method. You pass in a num, and you pass in a string, and you pass in an array, and you change them, but your method returns void. So it returns absolutely nothing. How many of these things actually changed? So say you have an integer x, which we set at 42, and we set a string 1 at life, and we set, are you getting the joke? No? Huh? Yeah? Hitchhiker's Guide? Okay, whatever, hopefully. And then you go to integer array A, and I set it at some weird values, like 6, 12, and 496, okay? And then change me gets past all of these. So x gets passed into the variable num, and string 1, life, gets passed into my string, right there, okay? And a gets passed into r. So each of these new variables, num, my string, and r, have now been set. Okay, so we go down here, and num becomes num plus 5. So I had, let's just write this down. I had x, and that's storing 42, and now I have num, and that's storing 42. All right, I had string 1. String 1 looked like this. It's an object, so it's aimed at a string over here, and that's got life in it. And then that got passed to my string, 6, 12, 496. And then we made r, and what we just learned is that r is aimed there, okay? And we run this. If you actually type this into Eclipse and run it, what you will discover, x was 42. After you run it, x is still 42. If you started with 6, 12, 496, your final array is 6, 5, 496. So that one changes. And when you do this, you pass it in as life, and you change it by adding 5 to it, string 1 is still pointed at just the word life. This was aimed here initially. So after the method runs, num is gone, my string is gone, and r is gone. But a is still representing a change here, and this is the weird thing, okay? When we added 5, strings are immutable. So when we added 5, it had to make a new word, life, and put 5 onto it. So this was now aimed here instead of at this one. Because my string gets my string plus 5. This created a new string, because strings are immutable and can't be changed. So it created a new string, and then it chucked this string. There was no one pointing at life 5 anymore. No one's pointing there. So it's gone, and string 1 is still pointing at life, even though a has pointed at a changed value. Oh, that's weird. Okay? If you treat strings a little bit more like primitives, it'll work out for you. Okay, so let's look at page 2 and hope that you get this. I'm also putting into the Canvas post a link that explains a little bit more why strings do what they do. And it's not important for you for the AP, but this is a really neat article that explains it. So, okay, we're going to page 2 now. Go.